Welcome to Long Distance Caregiving. Today's session is aimed at people who are caring for someone living with dementia, and the language we'll be using will reflect that, talking to caregivers and about people living with dementia. A long distance caregiver is someone who is far enough away that they cannot jump into the car and be there within a few minutes, or who cannot enter the phone and have in-person contact with the person living with dementia. You might live an hour away or on the other side of the country. In either case, it is difficult, if not impossible, for you to be physically present, which can be needed to assess and provide supports. Therefore, we will discuss options for those of you who may be able to arrange a short visit, for those who can arrange for someone else to visit, and for those who simply cannot visit and need to conduct all of your caregiving from a distance. During today's session, we are going to look at several different aspects of long-distance caregiving, starting with recognizing some of the practical and emotional challenges involved. We will identify some resources so that you can help set up a network of support for the person to help make life easier for them, and that involves learning how to assess and reassess their needs as they change, and how you can share some of the responsibilities. We will look at making the most of your visit when you do get to see them. And we'll finish by talking a bit about virtual visits and how you can maximize the value of a video call. Long distance caregiving has its own set of challenges. You may find as time goes on and the disease progresses that you are spending more and more time, energy, and effort trying to support the person living with dementia. The conflicting pressures of work, family responsibilities, and other life priorities can create stress, emotional distress, and problems when trying to balance out all of these competing demands. For long-distance caregivers, the disease may sometimes seem to progress slowly, and other times you may notice dramatic changes with each visit. As you witness these changes, you may find yourself experiencing a myriad of emotions. Many caregivers tell us that they feel a sense of loss and grief as they watch dementia progress, but this can be particularly acute for long-distance caregivers. Caregivers often also experience something called anticipatory grief, which is a state of wondering and worrying about future losses and how sad these changes will be. For many people, emotions of guilt and frustration go along with being a care partner. You may think and feel that what you do isn't good enough. Perhaps you're feeling powerless because things are happening and you're not just able to step in and support or help the person living with dementia when they need it. You may also feel frustrated as you struggle, especially from a distance, to understand the situation. Sometimes people with dementia are able to identify and communicate their needs and daily routines clearly, other times not. Some dementias include hallucinations and delusions. So how do you, as a long-distance caregiver, cope with the frustration of not really knowing what is going on? We will be talking about building a team around the person living with dementia. It is also important to think about your own support needs and who you can count on to help you with these different difficult emotions. And then there are many practical challenges around long-distance caregiving. What kind of challenges have you already experienced? Think about it as I read some of these other experiences out. Others have told us things like being far away from the person you are trying to support is a tremendous challenge. Nowadays, that distance doesn't have to be very far to add difficulty. Of course, being at a distance means there are additional costs and time involved. All three of those things are definitely made more challenging by this pandemic and the various restrictions related to it. And then there are the other aspects of your life you try to fit in, perhaps work, your health, and any other responsibilities you may have. So before I move on, think about this. Do any of these resonate with you? Are there particular emotional or practical challenges that you're facing? I'm going to give you a moment to review that and we'll have a look back at these emotions later on. So, having discussed some of the challenges associated with caregiving from a distance, let's have a look at how to approach those challenges. Often, developing a plan for the practicalities helps to address the emotional challenges as well. The first thing to do is to start assessing the person's support needs now and in the likely near future. What are the gaps? What are the needs you can start to address? We have created a checklist that identifies 6 key areas for assessment, which will hopefully allow us to determine what needs the person has and how to start addressing them. This is linked in the Helpful Resources document, which is available below in the description of this video. These assessment areas have been categorized as follows: physical health, mental well-being, emotional and social well-being, which can be a particular challenge at any time of isolation, safety, house maintenance, and repairs and finances. For each of those areas of support, we have 6 different methods we can use to assess those needs. First, we can assess needs over the phone. You're probably already talking on the phone and then wondering, what might be going on over there? Should I be worried? Am I getting the real story or the full picture here? Phone calls can tell us some things, but they often lead to more questions and possibly wrong information. Virtual visits or video calls add a layer of information to our assessment. It is possible to see the background or even have the person take you on a short tour around the home. We can ask to see the kitchen, the dog, the decorations in the living room, but we know that virtual visits aren't possible for everyone, and technology can sometimes cause unnecessary anxiety and stress to the person living with dementia. Instead, some of us have local family members or friends who may be able to visit on your behalf. Having a friend or another family member visit in person provides a wealth of information and can confirm or disregard information you obtained over the phone. For example, if your mum says she takes her pills every day and the in-person visitor discovers 5 unopened blister packs, well, that's important information. If you're struggling to think of someone who can visit, think back to friends, family, or neighbors who said, "Let us know if there's anything we can do to help." It might actually be time to pull in that favor and ask for assistance. Another option could be private healthcare agencies, where someone is hired to stop in and check in on your family member. If it is possible to hire someone, give them a checklist and have them do a home visit. Your local home and community care office can also conduct an in-home assessment and visit. These visits can be requested by either a person living with dementia or a caregiver. You can call the First Link Dementia Helpline for more information on how to contact your local home and community care office. And finally, the very best way to assess the current situation is to visit yourself, and we'll discuss some ideas to help you have a successful visit. If both of you are able to use the technology, video calling offers many benefits over traditional phone calls. Communication becomes much clearer when you can see the other person's body language and facial expressions, and you're not only relying on speech to communicate. We've heard from several care partners and people living with dementia how important being able to see someone's lips is in their ability to understand what they're saying. Seeing someone while you're talking to them also helps remove the feeling of distance. It brings the person into the room with you. You see the light in their eyes when they laugh and the gentle head nod or the head tilt to show that they're listening. It enhances the feeling of connection and closeness. It also allows you to celebrate milestones together from a distance and build some memories. Video calls also allow us to support one another in our day-to-day activities, such as helping someone to read their mail using video or identifying potential safety hazards in the home. Consider what the needs of the person that you're calling are and the purpose of the call. Is this call purely for social reasons, or are there other needs that can be met with a video call? What are their needs now and what is likely in the future? For example, watching your mum get off the couch during a call may suggest to you to start looking at furniture that's more supportive of her mobility, especially something that might be higher or more firm with armrests to push up off of. Do you have a specific goal in mind that you want to accomplish in the call? For example, if you're worried about the person's health, the call may be a way for you to get first-hand information on how the person is doing or what their living environment looks like. Identifying the purpose of the call is a great first step to ensuring that you're prepared for the call and can get the most out of your virtual visit. If you're calling a person living with dementia who is living alone, you may choose to use video calls as a way of assessing their current living environment. Depending on where the person's capabilities are at, they may be able to show you the state of their home, the inside of their refrigerator, or that funny sound that the washing machine is making. If you're concerned about your family members' eating habits, try having a virtual lunch with them, but keep it simple. A person's ability to participate in these type of activities can vary greatly depending on what part of their brain has been affected by dementia. If the person you're calling is able to answer a video call on their own and are comfortable doing so, ask them to prop up their tablet or other device so that you can prepare and eat a meal together. This can allow you to assess their ability to prepare a meal as well as any changes in their cognitive abilities. For example, change in peripheral vision can make it difficult for a person to see the food on their plate other than what is right in the middle of the plate. So you might observe that food on the sides is left uneaten. Video calling may also help provide a glimpse into your family member's hygiene and any safety issues within the home. For example, if you notice that the person you're calling appears disheveled, or you spot piles of paper around their chair, and this is unlike them, you may want to probe further and assess for additional changes. If assessment is the purpose of your call, use a critical eye to look around the room behind the person to see if there are any situations that may pose a threat to safety or things that need to get fixed. If the person gets up to show you something during the call, do you notice any changes to their ease of movement or general mobility? Are they having trouble getting up out of their chair, for example? Do you notice any visible bruises that could suggest a recent fall or burns that may be a sign of them having safety issues in the kitchen? How do you approach the issues you notice? It really depends on the person's their awareness of the changes and ability to talk about what it is that you're noticing. Changes in the brain can make awareness difficult, and it may not be effective to discuss the changes you are seeing if the person has no insight into their situation and disease. Your ability to assess the person's health and safety over a video call is dependent on their ability to answer the call in the first place. For some, using video calls may not have been familiar even before the onset of their dementia. And for those who may have been able to answer a video call by themselves in the past, the progression of the disease will eventually make it too challenging to continue. However, try to keep in mind that things can change, and you may be able to have success again at a later time under different circumstances, or perhaps by using a different device, or perhaps a video calling device that can pick up on its own. One care partner kindly shared with us that while it was simply too challenging for her to video call her mum while she lived alone, once she moved into assisted living, she was then able to leverage the support of the staff there to have a successful call with her mum, as they would help position the camera appropriately and orient her mum to where the voice was coming from. Okay, let's go through an example using the physical health checklist to look for indications that you might need to step in, get more information, and begin to build a support plan. One simple way to develop an action plan to assess the various areas is to consider something like the checklist we provided. In the Helpful Resources document, you'll find a link to a checklist divided into 6 areas we've mentioned that can help you identify who can help assess whether there are needs and in what specific areas. You'll find that helpful resources document linked in the description of this video. Feel free to pause the video now, pull open that document, and then come back to the video. Let's look at the area of health. On the left-hand vertical column, we have a series of indicators that might show us that the person needs support with their health needs. Take vision and hearing, for example. On the top horizontal row, we can identify who can help assess this support need. We might be able to assess the person's hearing and video ourselves easily over the phone or through video calls. So in the box next to vision and hearing, you can write your own name or me. However, you might be concerned about how much the person may be drinking, but it's hard for you to assess that yourself over the phone or virtually. The person might say, oh, I just have a glass of wine once a week, but you've seen very regular transactions at the local liquor store in their bank account. This isn't something that you can solve yourself over the phone. If you look across the top row, could a friend or family assess this? Is this something to save for an in-person visit when you can look in the recycling bin or see how many glasses of wine are drunk over the night? By going through the whole checklist, you can take those I need to do tasks out of your brain and put them down on paper. It can also help break down what may seem like an overwhelming list of to-dos just for you to do. Let's look at an example of a long-distance caregiving situation. Doris is 70 years old and lives alone in Ottawa. Her husband died a year ago, and since then, Doris's health has been declining. Her short-term memory is not very good anymore. She has high blood pressure, and her overall level of functioning seems to be on the decline. 2 months ago, Doris was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. Doris has only 2 adult living relatives, her brother, Mike, who lives about an hour away, and her daughter, Joanne, who lives in Kamloops, BC. Joanne talks to her mother every week, but cannot afford to visit her in Ottawa more than twice a year. When she's able to visit, Joanne cannot take too much time off for her job, and she has 2 kids at home that she cannot leave for very long. Joanne is increasingly worried about her mother. She suspects that Doris is not eating well because Doris says she can't be bothered cooking just for herself. Joanne is concerned about her safety. Doris's brother told Joanne that twice Doris put the electric kettle on the stove element to make a cup of coffee, the second time burning the kettle enough that it had to be replaced. Joanne knows that Doris's poor memory might also affect her ability to take her medication regularly. She wonders if her mother is still able to take care of herself and be safe. Joanne is worried, and she feels powerless and guilty for not being able to do more for her mother. She has contacted Doris's doctor and asked Mike to try to visit within the next 4 weeks, if COVID precautions allow. Here is Joanne's checklist regarding Doris's health assessment. She has used the phone and video chats to assess changes in Doris's overall health. She now needs more information and has decided that she needs the support of a family member, Mike. She emailed Mike the contact information for the GP and asked him to escort Doris to a checkup. If blood pressure is an issue and Doris could be forgetting to take her medications, Mike will ask the doctor for suggestions around medication administration. Doris knows through phone calls and reports from Mike that Joanne is not eating well and there are concerns around safety in the kitchen. So, Joanne calls a home security company to visit Doris's home and ensure that the fire alarms are working. Joanne also does some research on meal delivery options. She contacts Home and Community Care to ask about the supports that they provide around meals and nutrition and asks them to visit the home to assess Doris. Eventually, after Joanne has been able to assess these factors, she will consider next steps such as Doris's hygiene, which can often change with dementia. However, for now, she has 3 key areas to focus on and a variety of ways to look into these areas and even begin addressing them. Resources vary by community and research will be necessary. The Alzheimer Society has a community resource list for each health region in BC. So if the person you are supporting is living in BC, contact our First Link Dementia Helpline. If the person living with dementia is out of province, then there are Alzheimer societies in each province that can help. There are also equivalent organizations in most countries around the world. The more local support you have in place for the person, the less scary it is because you know that the appropriate resources are in place. Keep using the checklist to work through all the possible needs and then learn about local community resources that could be helpful. Alzheimer's Society is ideally your first stop for research on local resources. Of course, both the internet or local libraries are still good resources, and you can find local government phone numbers that will put you in touch with what's available in the community. Note that most libraries can be accessed online, which can make research at a distance easier. There are also local resources that can be helpful, such as a directory of senior services. If you can't locate a directory, perhaps call a local senior centre and ask if they have access to a community services directory. Check in with the friends of the person living with dementia, with their neighbours, or perhaps any organisation they're involved with, church, temple, bridge club, etc. Many of their peers may have access resources themselves and may have good recommendations or leads. These are also important considerations for the who may be able to help on your checklist, but we will discuss this further a bit later on. But again, the easiest and fastest resource here in BC is to simply call the First Link Dementia Helpline and ask about community resources. If there is no community resource list for your community, or you just want to develop your own list, you may want to organize services needed into something similar to this. For example, start with listing the kinds of services that are needed, and for each one identify who is the contact, what is the contact number, what are the contact hours so that you can get in touch, and leave a place for your notes once you do connect. So in this example, if meals are an issue and you're concerned your family isn't eating enough or not eating healthy enough, check which meal services are available in their community and arrange for meals to be delivered. Transportation can be another area of need. Look into transit, HandyDart, taxi, volunteer organizations. This can help to create a clear sense of what is available in the community where the person with dementia lives. In a smaller community, it can be more of a challenge to find resources that meets the needs of a person living with dementia. Whether the community is large or small, there are some resources that can help in that search. Develop relationships with the people and services close to the person living with dementia. You will want to connect with friends, family, neighbors, landlords, the doctor, the bank, local services and supports. It's important to remember that when starting to connect with these resources, to develop relationships. You will likely want to maintain detailed lists. Long-distance caregivers usually build extensive networks of support. Work at these relationships. These people, these agencies are going to be key to the person living with dementia living successfully at home. While building a network of support, you will need the appropriate legal documents that indicate that you are in the position of being able to make decisions on behalf of the person living with dementia. And those documents will be different depending on the province or the country that the person living with dementia lives in. Here in BC, we have two really important documents. One is the enduring power of attorney for financial and legal issues. The other is the representation agreement section 9 for health and personal care issues. If you need more information about these documents, we do have a pre-recorded webinar on personal planning that you can find on the Alzheimer's Society of BC recorded videos webpage. And it's also listed in the helpful resources document, again, which is linked in the description of this video. However, the legal documentation will be different in different provinces. If your family member lives in another province, then you will need to research what legal documents are required there. The Alzheimer Society in that province can help with this information. Ultimately, it's important to know what documents need to be in place in order to support the person living with dementia and so that you are legally permitted to act on their behalf. And don't forget about the support that you may be able to find from friends and neighbors in the community. We know it can be uncomfortable asking for help from friends or neighbors. No one wants to impose, so make your ask small and specific. Most people want to be helpful. That young couple who lives next door to your mum could be an extra pair of eyes and ears. They may be willing to do a weekly check-in call or keep an extra pair of house keys on hand. If you give them your phone number or email address, they could contact you when they observe something unusual. You might connect with a group of friends that your mum got together with for coffee every Saturday. Talk to them and say, "Here's my number and email. If you are concerned, please let me know." By reaching out and talking to others, you are increasing the person with dementia's circle of support. Think of it as building a safety net around the person living with dementia so they can continue living life as they wish, doing the things they've always enjoyed, but with a safety net of people and not just you around them. Service agencies, contractors, not-for-profit agencies, or social clubs are all potential organizations that can help to form that network and can help share some of the responsibility. We've discussed some strategies to consider for building a network of support around the individual with dementia and how you can support that individual from afar. We also want to briefly discuss how you can make the most of your visit if you are able to visit. Of course, you want to use your time well and to your full advantage, but it's important to try and avoid the kind of swoop in and swoop out where you are going in and you're doing 20 things and then you're out of there. Your visit needs to be balanced. In the example we spoke about before, Joanne could arrive at Doris's home and completely focused on her checklist. She might get a lot done, yet return home feeling disappointed because she did not take the time to reconnect with her mum and enjoy their time together. Joanne might want two checklists for her visit, the to-do list we have already looked at, and the moments to share with mum checklist that might include making spaghetti or looking at the photo albums or walking in the park. Making the most of your visit includes making new memories and enriching your personal connection, and it's just as important. Even if you have a small window of time and a lot to accomplish, it's important to carve out this time. We can all take 10 minutes before bed to reminisce about childhood stories our parents used to tell us, or the difficulty you and your 3 siblings gave your parents when they were younger. Often individuals with dementia don't remember what we did for them, but they remember the feelings that they had with us or the care they felt from us. If you are going to be planning a visit, you can prepare in advance to make your visit as smooth as possible. You can plan your appointments ahead of time, research local services as much as you can from a distance, and pull the person with dementia into the planning process as much as you can. The logistics of everything that needs to get done while you're visiting, along with the emotions that can come up if you're seeing changes in the person, it can make visiting an exhausting experience. Aim to make it easier on both of you. One of the key things we hear from people living with dementia is nothing about us without us. You don't want the person to feel as though you're swooping in, going there to do things for them. So as much as you can, do the planning with them if it's suitable for the person's situation. Reassess their needs whenever you visit and keep an updated list of their medications, their medical history, local emergency numbers and contact numbers, and keep it in an easily accessible place. If something happens, then you'll need this information in an urgent situation. It will be stressful in an emergency if you don't have this list, so have it handy, available, and update it when you visit. We have reviewed a lot of information today, and some of it may seem like just more to do, but hopefully we've been able to break them down into some more manageable chunks. If you are a long-distance caregiver and struggling to find ways to support your person, assess their needs using a checklist, both to determine who can help with assessing the needs and who can help fulfill these needs. Consider the role of video visits, especially in helping you with your assessment of health and safety. Plan early. We know that planning can take time, and getting the paperwork, such as a power of attorney or a representation agreement, as soon as possible will be very helpful. The person living with dementia will need time to process any changes to their routine as well. Identify some local resources. You may even be able to connect at a distance and set up a video appointment. Collaborate. Make connections with people who provide the local services that your family will be assessing. And once you're able to visit in person, make the most of your visit by scheduling the things that you need to do and by scheduling the organizations and people that you need to visit. But also prioritize just spending time with the person living with dementia. When possible, involve the person living with dementia in the process. Plan your discussions at a time where the person with dementia will be alert and comfortable. Consider several short conversations rather than a long, complex conversation. And observe, is this conversation, is this planning creating undue stress? Do I need to stop and raise the issue another time? Is it appropriate to involve the person living with dementia in this conversation? The extensive thought and planning required can be overwhelming for a person living with dementia. And sometimes dementia has affected insight and judgment, so decision making can be impaired. And so there may be times when a caregiver will need to make a decision on behalf of the person living with dementia or to take action without the involvement of the person. This situation can be uncomfortable for a caregiver. Please connect with us through the First Link Dementia Helpline for information and support and to discuss this further. You might also want to review the information and recordings on personal planning on the Alzheimer's Society of BC website. Be flexible and compromise. There are often many ways to do things, and although it may not be the way you would do it, it might be important to focus on simply getting the task accomplished, which leads into sharing the responsibility. That is, who else can support you with the jobs that need to be done? Be realistic. How receptive is the person with dementia? What are your life circumstances? Although you may want to make big changes and take responsibility for them all, that may simply not be realistic. Maintain a support system around both yourself and the person living with dementia. And take care of yourself. Remember, the job of being a caregiver is sometimes like taking on another full-time job. It's work that requires tremendous mental, emotional, and physical stamina. Be prepared to experience difficult emotions. Be prepared to feel tired and overwhelmed sometimes. It's a big task, and you will likely need some time to recover from this project and support along the way. And finally, here are the numbers for the First Link Dementia Helpline. If you have questions about the information you've heard here today, or any other questions about living with dementia, or are interested in our programs, please don't hesitate to call the First Link Dementia Helpline. English services are available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. at 1-800-936-6033. Services are also available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Punjabi, Cantonese, and Mandarin. You can find out more at alzbc.org/SLDHL. Once again, if you do have questions or you do want to research or access the helpful resources document, that will be linked below in the description of this video. Thank you.